dedicated to long-distance couples. The sentence at the bottom of the love letter bore the resemblance to a long and crooked key. This final sentence, reading, "I hope God lets me go into your dreams." She folded it up after smelling the text and tucked it into the drawer where she kept his letters. It was hot in Guatemala, and she swore she could almost smell the frost from Massachusetts on his letter. Her drawer was rich with love letters, as a closet is rich with pretty dresses worn 1,000 times. For she had read them 1,000 times. "I hope God lets me go into your dreams," his letter said. It is perhaps the most vulnerable moment of sleep, when the body paralyzes and the eyes spasm mid-exorcism style, all while something unique and beautiful unfolds inside. Our imaginations glitch, or sometimes not. It is said the actual dream only lasts 2 to 3 seconds, but our brains prolong them, making it up as it goes along, as we go along. It is like how it only takes a little bit to write a love letter, but it can take a week or 2 to reach the person it's addressed to. The letter falls asleep inside an envelope and wakes up within somebody else's hands. Warmer hands, for his pale hands penned proclamations like, "I hope God lets me go into your dreams." It seems God grants those one-off wishes of ours the most, those cast so quickly without a second thought, as though those are the easiest ones to grant. To an atheist, every wish is granted on accident. They live in a world of Kevin McAllister wishes, doomed to go about life replicating the scream face. But in our granted wishes dreams, our faces retain their shape and never melt. It was as though he awoke instead of entering a dream. He awoke in the middle of that pedestrian boulevard, thousands upon thousands away from his bed in Salem. Locals passed him by. He swerved and saw the barred windows on aged colonial buildings, with vines flourishing their creamy-colored exteriors. He saw some tables being used by locals, some with coffee and some with not. It was muggy as it had to have been hundreds of millions of years ago, when the earth was host to giant bugs and stomping Carnotaurus. Some of the buildings on the boulevard were as pastoral and colorful as dinosaurs in a children's cartoon. He turned around and saw the Arch of Santa Catalina, an indoor corridor that stretched above the boulevard, connecting the parallel strips of colonial buildings. It was a Hollandaise color with a white rib cage that curved above the boulevard. Its clock tower resembled the Cyclops, and immediately he knew where he was. He turned away from the arch of Santa Catalina and saw her coming down the boulevard with her cadence matching the poppy yet cinematic intro of an old Lana Del Rey song. Her footsteps were as far away as droplets of water, single filing from a gutter after a rainstorm. He felt aware of a rainstorm 1,000 miles away. Seeing her approach from so far away was as breathtaking as seeing a blue thunderstorm in the distance. But she was not a thunderstorm. She was everything absolutely after it. How entranced he became in her path, as his body paralyzed 1,000 miles away. His soul was dizzy with kinetic energy here. He felt his lungs inflating and deflating, his lips parted in awe and eyes red with sleep. Then she noticed him after looking at all the pretty buildings on the boulevard. Some long-necked heron glided overhead with a letter in its talon, not to be delivered to either one of them, but to the god outside the crystal ball of their dream. Her face came alive with a smile when she noticed him. She quickened her pace only slightly, but it became a sprint when she was nearer. He caught her in his arms, and they twirled before the cyclops eye of the arch of Santa Catalina. The weight and pressure of each other's bodies was very real. She, up in his arms, had her bosom flown and nested home against his chest. Her cheek was against his forehead. He put her down, and they smiled at each other, with their eyes making the translation of the languages of their souls. Oh, what an airport terminal that street in Guatemala was for their spirits. She held his face. She brushed her thumbs beneath his eyes while they drank the revelry of her expression. Everything else that ensued within the dream is private. They walked away from the arch of Santa Catalina until its clock tower cyclops eye couldn't see them anymore. The waking version of the structure is waiting for their reunion in the physical plane. I posit that you felt this feeling in an airport once or twice. How many lighthouses don't wait for ships, but wait for similar situations? Every first meeting is a kind of reunion, sponsored and chaperoned by beautiful architecture. By architecture that used to be beautiful. How many things of beautiful architecture only refrain from collapsing because they suckle on the memory of lovers. It is God taking certain wires from our brain and connecting them, and perhaps in waking moments he enters the bodies of lighthouses, and he enters the bodies of skyscrapers, and enters the body of the arch of the Santa Catalina to watch us. You've been listening to the story Dream Distance Relationship, written by Nicholas Leonard, read by Naya Nomikou. Thank you for being here.